Left 4 Dead 2 was one of my favorite games growing up. I know that sounds crazy, but come on, we all played bad games when we were kids, don't judge me. It was the perfect co-op shooter as me, my cousins, and my friends booted up my old Xbox 360 to shoot zombies all day after school. It was a lot of fun, and I got attached to every survivor I played as and their stories of surviving the infection. In the game's final mission, the Parish, when they got on the helicopter after all the obstacles they went through and that big explosion followed them, I was really happy. That one crew I played as got to see a happy ending. When I played Left 4 Dead 1, I was devastated watching the sacrifice. But then I wondered to myself, did I lead them to their deaths? Nick was talking about how he was seeing that the army was shooting people that weren't just zombies. The survivors came at a time where the military was just doing cleanup to reduce the spread of the infection by bombing the city. Did I lead them to their doom? Or did I save them? In this video, I will be trying to uncover what I think happened to the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors after the events of the Parish, and why I believe they probably lived. There's a lot of lore and environmental storytelling to really go into, so buckle up as I try to uncover a question many have had since 2009. The popular theory around the block was that the Left 4 Dead 2 cast, if not treated like refugees in the situation, were walking into their impending doom, either to have been experimented on or killed. This comes from the fact that when the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors got rescued by the army in Blood Harvest, turns out they were just captured to be experimented on for a possible cure, and if not finding one, probably just being shot and burned to prevent the spread of the infection because they were afraid of the virus spreading to the soldiers. It's the same reason why in the passing, they have given up on the military or looking around for help and stuck with Bill's plan of getting a boat to the Florida Keys, rejecting the Left 4 Dead 2 crew's idea of everyone going to New Orleans together.
You made it! Where are you headed?
We heard New Orleans was the last holdout. Just figured we'd go there. Hey, you folks want to come with us?
Nah, good luck with that. We've had enough of the military.
It's not a completely invalid situation, but with the evidence I can piece together on this theory, it kind of falls apart for me to not believe in it. The base that the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors went to was Millhaven, a base somewhere off the forest that hadn't had contact with the outside world or the military in some time. They haven't even been out since the initial infection. They had no idea the infection had been mutating. The only other person who knew was the driver that was operating the rescue vehicle. He wrote a report on it, and his superiors laughed at him and thought he was being delusional. In fact, Lewis had to explain to some of the soldiers what he saw, because the soldiers in Millhaven haven't been outside and they couldn't believe some of the things they were hearing about. Fat zombies that attract zombies with their vomit like catnip. Athletic zombies jumping from tall buildings to catch you. Giant zombies with giant tree trunk arms hosting incredible strength. And vampires. I'm joking on that last one, but overall they couldn't believe it, and that's odd considering it's 2 to 3 weeks into the infection. That doesn't line up with the same military and CETA we see in Left 4 Dead 2's campaign Dead Center. When we leave the rooftop and enter the halls of the infected, there is a chart of them experimenting with special infected. The bile jar was used as a distraction for the infected that CETA created and supplied their workers with in case of an emergency. Rochelle was working for a news station and knew what these mutations were and explained it to the rest of the crew.
Saw a report on those things. They're called hunters. Holy shit, zombies. I saw the news reports. Hell, I produced some, but wow.
This military group at Millhaven just seemed extremely unlucky and got left behind. Also, the military talks about the radio silence from the other army bases or CETA for the past 6 days, and that if the army were to call them, they would have by now, and that this base was all that was left of the US Army. And we can tell in Dead Center, that's wrong too. The army and CETA are still working together to rescue survivors, and in the Parish finale, the military is still using radio comms to communicate with each other.
7, this is Papa Gator, over.
Those sound like soldiers.
Over. Rescue 7,
Somebody talk to me.
status. Over.
Repair ETA is 10 minutes, over.
Did not copy. Say again, Rescue 7. Over.
10 minutes, over.
They aren't the last of the army, they were abandoned. They were left for dead. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna entertain that. Overall, the idea that the military chose to rescue these survivors just to kill them seems unlikely. The situation at Millhaven seems entirely different to the situation that happened everywhere else. So with that, whatever Millhaven was doing probably was just doing initially what the army in CETA were doing, but they probably moved past it after the first week, leaving Millhaven behind in the process. However, they're not in the clear yet. That doesn't fully explain the situation in New Orleans, and as much as I want to say they survived, New Orleans still paints a picture that they could have died. So let's look at the final campaign, the Parish. The Parish paints a grim possibility for our survivors, as what they were walking to is probably their death, and Nick highlights this possibility a lot.
Cross this bridge and we are finally safe.
Or they're gonna line us up against a wall and shoot us.
Well, you free to make yourself a new life right here in this room, Nick.
Okay, all right, let's go.
So it's not wrong, but if you pay attention to your surroundings, you start to see the big picture. When we go finally make it to New Orleans, it seems we made it a little too late, as the last military hold point is basically in shambles. The survivors are quick to notice that they're only flying jets now, not a good sign.
Military is still active here.
I'm gonna take that as a good sign.
And there is no helicopter in sight, but the military were here and evacuating people. There are signs of instruction from CETA, and it's also clear that martial law was enforced on New Orleans, because the US military has use of deadly force plastered everywhere. The military was definitely here in larger groups also, as you can see other vehicles and jets. When we make it to the safe room, we can see that the survivors before us wrote things for us to see. They mentioned carriers again. This time, unlike the people of Millhaven, there's a routine to safely evacuate carriers and non-carrier people. It seems that the carriers had a priority because they were needed to be separated from the others who were not infected. However, the people were terrified because they already knew that if they came in contact with carriers, they'd be infected as well. I believe this was when the New Orleans evacuation fell apart, because sooner or later, the infected made their way to New Orleans, most likely causing a panic and a rush of infected with that. Plus, trying to slowly evacuate citizens while also fighting running zombies is a recipe for disaster, and in the panic, everyone must have dispersed and mixed up carriers and non-carriers. It was here that I think the military made the rough choice to kill all the carriers, because one carrier is a recipe for disaster if they let the carriers mix up with non-carriers and could cause a zombie outbreak on the vehicle. That also explains the crashed helicopter that the survivors note couldn't have been taken down by zombies alone. I think the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors got extremely lucky in their scenario, coming at the end of the chaos when they didn't have to worry about the chaos that the military went through. Which is exactly why when they report to the army on the radio, their first instinct isn't to just blow up the bridge and all the carriers, but to check if their evac chopper was carrier ready.
Stop! Don't bomb the bridge!
Rescue 7. That's coming from the bridge.
Last buzzard. Stand down. Stand down.
Bridge. Who is this?
My name's Nick. There's 4 of us on the west end of the bridge.
Bridge. Are you immune?
We are not infected.
Negative, Bridge. Are you immune? Have you encountered the infected?
Yeah, you could say that.
Rescue 7, are you equipped for carriers?
Affirmative, propagator.
Bridge, that sector is clear of friendlies. Your only remaining pickup is on the east bank of the bridge. Our last chopper is leaving in 10 minutes. You need to lower the span and get across to the east end. Be advised, the bridge is crawling with Whiskey Delta.
Okay, we're heading over now.
Good luck, Bridge.
With that, I think that the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors have a great chance of not being lined up against a wall and being shot at. With the evidence I could gather, it's clear that the Left 4 Dead 2 cast had much better circumstances than the Left 4 Dead 1 cast. From a much more prepared military to probably convenient timing, it's safe to assume, from my opinion, that they're not dead and are probably safe somewhere and not Left 4 Dead. Oh, okay, come on. I wanted to try it at least once.